Well, hello, everybody, and thank you so much for coming to my LinkedIn Live. Welcome to Demystifying Government Relations, Basics, Myths, and Transformative Power. So this session is going to run for about 30 minutes of presented material, and afterwards we'll follow with about a 15-minute or a little bit longer Q&A, depending on how many questions you have. The presentation will be in English, mais je vais accepter les questions en français à la fin aussi, et je vais les répondre en français. Donc, si vous avez des questions en français, n'hésitez pas de les garder à la fin, puis je vais les répondre. Anyway, jumping right in, we are going to start, and I'm really, really happy to be doing this. I mentioned back in May during the Media Relations Live that I would be doing a Government Relations Live. That is my specialty, public affairs and government relations. So today we're going to talk about some definitions, what they are. We're going to engage in a little bit of myth busting. We're going to talk about government relations type activities for organizations of all sizes. And I'm going to run through my Policy Power Play download for you, which you can grab there. You can see on the bottom the ticker, Connection Quebec sign up, Connection Quebec abonné. You can have it in English and in French. Today, we're going to be using the English version, obviously, but the French version is available. It's a 10-page document on how to have a 10-step document on how to have a good government relations plan. So anyway, let's start with some definitions. Given that we're in Canada, we'll go with the Government Relations Institute of Canada's definition. So government relations and public affairs professionals, like me, facilitate the interchange of information, experience, and ideas between government decision makers and those affected by their decisions. So that's everybody. What is required of all involved is a standard of conduct that is ethical and professional. So what is government relations? Now, the reason that I put this together and the reason that I've put a few things together is because in the past 6 years, when I've been working with the English language not-for-profit sector in Quebec, I realize often when the phrase government relations is heard, it's associated with applying for government grants, government funding, and the government is the funder. Not really. Yes, what government relations is activism, advocacy, awareness building, and direct lobbying. So if you get those 4 elements right, you're applying for government grants. The money will go where governments think that there's an importance and there's a need for it. So if you get the first part right, then the not really part, it can become part of it. So of course, applying for things, contracts and stuff is part of your government affairs plan, but it's not real government relations. So I really want to talk to you about the possibilities that you can create with lobbying, with advocacy and awareness building, and with activism. So that's what this session is about today. So first, we're going to do some myth busting, which is really important. So the first one, we're going to bust 3 myths. I am going to bust 3 myths for you. So the first one is that lobbyists operate in secrecy and behind closed doors. Now, we lobbyists know there's nothing further from the truth because lobbying is a highly regulated and transparent activity where we are required to register and disclose our activities, our clients, and the issues we are advocating for. And the transparency ensures that the public and policy makers are aware of who is talking to whom and on what topics. So effective lobbying involves open and honest communication with stakeholders and the public. Now, when you go to register as a lobbyist, this is all there. You cannot proceed with your registry without that transparency. So that's the reality. And that's the reality at the Quebec level, at the provincial level, and at the federal level, where there are laws. And there are laws across Canada and all the different provinces. For the sake of Quebec, the provincial law applies at the municipal level. So if you're lobbying in Quebec municipal officials, it's the provincial law that applies here. So myth number 2, lobbyists only serve special interests and exclude the public. Now, that's not true. Now, of course, like anybody else who works in a client relationship, you do represent special interests, and the specific interests rather, and these can change from, it could be large corporations to small not-for-profits. So a lot of lobbyists actually work to advance causes that benefit the broader public, such as healthcare, environmental protection, or human rights. And transparency and ethical standards require lobbyists to disclose their goals and strategies, ensuring their efforts are aligned with the public and not just narrow self-serving agendas. So you really do have to say who you want to talk to, how you intend to reach out to them, whether you're going to, in terms of that's what they mean by strategies. If you intend to telephone them, if you intend to write them, if you intend to speak to them face-to-face, that needs to be disclosed. So moving right along to myth number 3 for me to bust for you this afternoon, that lobbyists manipulate information and mislead policymakers. The reality is that trust and credibility are the cornerstones of effective lobbying. So you have to provide accurate and reliable information to policymakers to build long-term relationships. So the transparency helps to ensure that everything is factual and makes it easier for policymakers to make informed decisions and also for them to do what you're asking them to do. So it really is incumbent upon the lobbyists to give really up-to-date, credible, transparent, and honest information. So misleading and manipulating information would damage the lobbyist's reputation, but could also result in legal consequences. I mean, as I've said to clients before, you can get one meeting, but depending on how you conduct yourself in that meeting, you might not get a second. So the goal in building long-term relationships in lobbying, it is that, and part of that is the trust that you build with the decision makers, whether it's staff or whether it's elected officials themselves. So here, GR for all. GR for all, this is where we're going to look at some examples to demonstrate about how government relations activities can be adapted to fit the size and scope of any organization, ensuring that you can effectively engage with policymakers and influence public policy. So we're going to start with small not-for-profits or community organizations. So one of the ways that you can engage in GR is by grassroots advocacy. So organizing community events, letter writing campaigns, or petitions to influence local governments, government policies that impact your cause. So the petitions, these could be federal petitions, these could be provincial petitions, these could be municipal petitions. You can also give input at the National Assembly when they're doing consultations. You might not be invited to give input. They tend not to be inviting people these days, but you can always give input through the National Assembly website. So that is another way that you can engage in government relations activity and have your point of view heard. Public consultations, participating in town hall meetings or public hearings. Again, these are ways to have your message heard. When you're dealing with Quebec, if you're providing documentation that's going to be public or it's going to be given to members of committees, please ensure that it's in French. It's for your better interest and to ensure that the people that are receiving the documentation, that they really understand what you're trying to get across to them. And then, of course, your relationship building with your local officials. So engaging with your city council members or with your local MNAs and your MPs to advocate for specific community initiatives and secure support for initiatives. Now, the thing that about that is that elected officials like to know who's operating on the ground. They like to go to community organizations. They like not-for-profits. They like to come visit. They like photo ops. So it's a great idea to start building if you have not already started building. If you're a not-for-profit or a community org, get with your local officials because they actually really would probably be happy to speak with you. Moving right along to medium-sized businesses or regional organizations. So in some of these, we're going to have groupings because they have similar scopes and similar interests. So in this vein, we have policy monitoring and analysis, so keeping track of the relevant legislation or regulatory changes that can affect your business or sector and preparing responses or lobbying efforts. You don't want to be caught off guard. You never want to be caught off guard. So you need to monitor things to be able to foresee what could happen and to plan your efforts for whatever session is going forward. Let me take a little bit of tea. Yeah. Further, and because there is strength in numbers and medium-sized businesses and regional organizations do tend to involve larger numbers of voices, you can build or join coalitions with other businesses or organizations to collectively lobby for specific issues to your industry or your region. So this is a really important way to be able to engage in GR. Another one is engagement in trade missions. So going back to the Mulroney days in Canada, medium enterprises and regions were invited to go on, and Mr. Chrétien as well, on Team Canada missions, and where they could build relationships with policymakers and meet new opportunities and help to formulate national policy that would benefit their sectors and their enterprises. So that is a great way. Engaging in trade missions or economic forums is an excellent way to build relationships with policymakers and to show them what's important to you. Then as we get up a level, the larger corporations or national organizations. So they may engage in direct lobbying, engage professional lobbyists, somebody like me, somebody like my co-opetition on the Francophone side, to represent your organization's interests at the federal or provincial level, influencing legislation, shaping policy, or building awareness and building relationships, or taking advantage of pre-existing relationships that the lobbyist may have. Another thing that national organizations can do, and this is a very smart thing, this is win-win, corporate social responsibility campaigns, where you can use CSR initiatives that align with government priorities. So you're showing that you're building goodwill and you're enhancing relationships with policymakers. You're also showing that you are on the same page with them. This is a very, very smart way to engage in GR. So the third way of large and national organizations can do GR is regulatory compliance and advocacy. So working with those agencies to ensure compliance and lobbying for favorable regulations and policy changes that benefit the industry. Now you notice I am using lobbying and advocating interchangeably. They can be. Just know when you have to register, and we'll get to that in a little while. So for industry organizations, so getting back to that relationship building and the importance of the policymakers, elected officials, staff, decision makers having really relevant, key, and accurate information. This is where this can come from. White papers and research reports, they highlight your challenges, give opportunities, and provide data-driven arguments to support the policy recommendations. It's very important. Policymakers can take things directly from these reports to be able to support things and to lobby internally for your policy recommendations that you're making. So another thing that is a great thing to do, and this is something that is organized across sectors. I participated in them. I've organized them. Industry Association annual lobby days. So these lobby days might occur on Parliament Hill. These lobby days might occur at the National Assembly. It's where you would go and meet with members, legislators. These could be committee members. These could be your local officials, but in their environment where they actually meet at on Parliament Hill to talk about the sector of the economy. These can look in like a lot of different things, but they all have the same, or they should have the same objective in mind. It's an annual thing, and you can also discuss changes that have occurred throughout, concerns that are upcoming, and meet new people, foster relationships. If there have been committee changes, it's a great way to be able to have a captive audience, because oftentimes these things are planned. Organizations will have a template that they'll use for their annual lobby day. You get their caterer, they get their booking, they get this, they get that. It's a very planned thing, but they are an excellent way to engage in GR and to help to raise awareness around what you're trying to accomplish through your advocacy and lobbying. And then last but certainly not least is your public awareness campaigns. So this is where advocacy and awareness building, they come hand in hand. So awareness building is really key, because you're doing one thing about advocating to policymakers, but oftentimes you need to have the public's buy-in, and the government, they need to have the public's buy-in through elections and different things to be able to make policy key. So if you are able to engage in public awareness campaigns, why what you're trying to accomplish is important and how it's beneficial to society, public awareness campaigns are a great way to be able to do that. So the very last group that we're going to look at are global corporations or international NGOs. So their GR may look a little bit different. It's a little bit different in scope, but a lot of these are the same strategies and tactics. It's just depending on the size. So I'm just giving you some examples of what it might look like for you. So, a global corporation or an international NGO might engage with multilateral organizations like the UN, like the World Bank, or the WTO to influence global policy standards and regulations. They may open government affairs offices in global capitals, or in places where they are able to get to those policymakers, or even say in Brussels, or in different places in, obviously Washington, Ottawa, different things like that, where they can get to those elected officials. This could also have provincial offices depending on what type of industry they're in, and if there are provincial jurisdictions. So you may find offices in Toronto, you may find offices in Montreal or Quebec City for multinational corporations trying to do GR here in Quebec. And then you get the cross-border advocacy, which is actually quite a common thing, where you're coordinating advocacy efforts across different countries to ensure alignment with global policy trends and to address cross-border regulatory challenges. So this could be the shipment of goods, this could be the shipment of services, this could be intelligence, this could be lots of different things and look lots of different ways, but you probably read about cross-border advocacy or hear about it in the media more often than you would think. And so now what we're going to do is, I have provided you with the link for this document. Should you choose to download it, Policy Power Play, your 10-step guide to government relations, which is something that I've developed as a download, and that has been quite well received. So I appreciate the feedback. It is also available in French. So basically it's 10 steps on 10 essential steps that you need, components that have a good government relations plan. So clear objectives. So you want to define your specific and measurable goals that align with your organization's overall objectives. These can include legislation, securing government contracts, obtaining regulatory approvals, or fostering positive relationship with key officials. So specific and measurable, it could be, let's say you want to be able to meet with all of the elected officials during the upcoming quarter and let them know what you're doing on the ground. Just relationship building, you would have a measurable thing. And if you did not have that, why did it not work? The next one, stakeholder mapping. So this is where you're going to look at everybody that's involved in what you're trying to accomplish, to understand their roles, interests, and decision-making processes, and how what you're trying to accomplish fits into what they're doing. This can include elected officials, regulatory agencies, and relevant committees. And when you're doing government relations, I cannot stress the importance enough of committees, both federally and municipal and provincially, committees and commissions that are standing and permanent and that look at issues that may affect your interest. So your issue identification analysis, you're identifying the policy issues that impact your organization and industry, and you're conducting thorough research, therefore are able to identify those people that are your stakeholders in your mapping. So you know what the implications of any proposed policies are going to be, the regulations or any legislative initiatives that are coming your way. This helps to develop your messaging and your positioning, so you can develop clear and compelling messages, and you can tailor these so that they resonate with the concerns and priorities of policymakers and describe the benefits of what you're proposing. So you're going to want to look at your messaging and make sure that you tweak it depending on who is your target. So that fits right into your relationship building. So if you have built those relationships, and there's a theme I've been exploring throughout: relationship building, because that's really what government relations is about. You'll know sort of what approach works with certain elected officials and what doesn't. So you establish trust and credibility by already providing relevant information, expertise, and support. And because they know you, they know what you're doing, they know what's going on, and they trust you. So you know that if you send them a message, they're not going to doubt it. They're not going to think that you're trying to sell them a bill of goods, because that relationship is secure. So this comes into where your advocacy strategies come in. So because you've developed those relationships, you're going to know what to do. So is it going to be mobilization? Will it be direct lobbying efforts? As we talked about in May, government relations and media relations go hand in hand. So you can actually leverage media relations, whether it's your owned media or it's earned media, to supplement and enhance your government relations activity and use these tactics to amplify your message and increase your chances of success. Now, I want to be very clear for the next thing. When you're doing any of these things, ensure compliance with all the relevant laws, regulations, and ethical guidelines governing the interactions with elected officials. So, I'm going to give you an example. If you're a not-for-profit in Quebec, you don't have to register with the Commissioner of Lobbying of Quebec, and you don't have to report activities. But if you hire somebody to do that for you, that individual has to register and report that they are doing this on your behalf. I can answer any questions on this. Again, I'm going to provide a link where you can reach out for 15 minutes and have a conversation with me, an introduction, if you'd like some further information about any of this, because I wouldn't want any of you to get into any kind of lobbying trouble. There are strict guidelines that apply. They're very straightforward and transparent, but they do apply, and make sure that you stick to them at all times. Which goes right into, you're going to be continuously monitoring your political developments, legislative activities, and regulatory changes that can affect what you're trying to get to, and evaluate the effectiveness of your efforts against your predefined metrics that we got to at in the first slide, and you're going to adjust as needed. So, by continuously monitoring these things, nothing's going to be taking you by surprise. You're going to be able to be nimble, and you're going to be able to be quick in your responses. So this is where you're going to really need to be quick in your responses. You'll have a crisis management plan in place. Now, when we talked about media relations back in May, we talked about crisis communications. Now, in the government relations environment, it could be that your organization is having a crisis and the government wants answers, and you need to have a crisis response ready, or it could be that there's a crisis in some kind of a government announcement that's adversely affecting your industry or your sector, and they want responses for you. So you need to know how you're going to respond and have your contingency and communication strategies in place for when that eventuality happens, because sadly, sometimes it happens to everybody. It could be a minor crisis, it could be a major crisis, but be prepared. So with all of these things in mind, this is long-term engagement. So a proactive and sustained approach to government relations is recognizing that relationships with policymakers evolve over time and invest in long-going relationship building efforts to ensure continued influence and support. So that ends that part of the presentation. So after all of this discussion, I think maybe you're wondering if you should be enhancing your government relations activities for the upcoming parliamentary sessions. GR for you? Well, I'm happy to introduce to you GR for QC, Government Relations for Quebec Organizations and Entrepreneurs, Small and Medium Enterprises, and NFPs. I have heard you loud and clear. You have limited resources, you have limited time, you need to do GR, you don't really know how to do GR. I have packed 25 years of experience and knowledge into 90 minutes, pre-recorded materials with all kinds of downloads. You've got all your legislation, you've got your division of power, so you're targeting your right audience. You've got everything to do GR in Quebec at the municipal level, the provincial level, and the federal level. And it looks like this. There it is in 4 modules. So you have the module 1, the overview of government relations, module 2, government relations in the Quebec context, which shows you quite a few different things about Quebec, because it's particularly important after Bill 96 and navigating provincial websites. Module 3, government relations in action, and module 4, government relations communications. And with each of the modules, there are relevant downloads that you can keep forever and use them again and again. There are pro tips that you can use, or government engagement documents and worksheets. And between now and the 31st of August, you have a live code. So you can hit, I'm going to get you this link here. Give me a second. There you go. And you can use this live code to save 10% on GR for QC between now and August 31st, which is a great deal. And I now will say merci for your time, and I will be happy to take any questions that may be happening in the comment section. So feel free to ask your comments or ask your questions now, leave your comments now. And I will also put up a link for, well, I'm going to think I will put it in the banners of how to set up a meeting with me. So you can grab GR for QC there. You can get information. You can check everything out on my website. And in this way here, I think this is working. Yes, you can. Oops. There we go. You can set up a meeting with me through Calendly at that link, so you can have a 15-minute telephone call. So if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them in the comments. I don't see any in StreamYard for the moment, but I will check on LinkedIn to see if anybody has any questions for me. So I hope that you are enjoying this session. I hope that you have enjoyed this session. And please don't be shy to ask your questions. And I'm going to look here on LinkedIn because I don't know. Last time they showed up in StreamYard, and oh, I've got good comments. I've got well, okay, but I don't think I have any questions. So with that, I guess I'm going to leave this for another 2 minutes, and then we'll end at 12:30. So you can grab lunch and another rainy Montreal day. But tomorrow it's supposed to buck up. But anyway, oh, thank you, Janelle. I appreciate it. Again, everybody can schedule a telephone call with me or a Zoom with me at the Calendly information, and I'm happy to explore organizations. Oh, here, Lorraine, I have a question from. Oh, questions coming in, so I'm not going to end the session yet. I'm going to answer the question from. I'm going to show this, Lorraine. Yes. Hi, Jennifer. Hi, Lorraine. Does GR only apply to working with elected officials, or is working with civil servants considered GR2? I'm trying to figure out the line between lobbying, advocacy, and what I do. Yes, Lorraine, and in Quebec, it also applies to civil servants. It absolutely applies to civil servants in Quebec. And if you would like to talk to me about that, I would be very happy to discuss that with you, because I know quite about what you're referring, because it's a fine line. But yes, civil servants count in your lobbying activities in Quebec. Oh, thank you, Megan. I appreciate it. I hope everything is going well in Toronto. It's so nice to meet you. So if anybody has any questions other than Lorraine's question, I'm really, really happy to answer. They seem to be kind of popping up. So I'm going to wait a little bit and see. I'm not in any rush. And I really appreciate the fact that you've taken your time to come and see me. You'll be able to check this out. I don't think you can check it out on LinkedIn afterwards, but you can check it out on my YouTube channel. Oh, you're welcome, Lorraine. More than happy to help with this, because I know it's murky sometimes. So again, you can hit me up for a call at that link. And thanks, Bonnie. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for your nice comments, everybody. And I'm going to wish you a great day. We're going to do these lives a little bit longer, maybe for next time, but I just wanted to give you a little bit brief about what government relations is, because when I hear GR and then funding, I just shake my head, because I'm a registered lobbyist and I have been for a long time. So I wanted to kind of give you an introduction to lobbying and the potentials that it could have for you and your organization, and to introduce you to GR for QC, because I think it's a great resource and I'd love to be able to share it with you. So do go and check it out. And with that, I will say bonjour, hi, and au revoir, bye. Have a great, great afternoon and a great rest of the summer, everybody. Thanks.